I'll ring the bell now. And we'll let the bell represent the start of a new segment in our day. This past week we've spoken about how in some places of worship people remove their shoes and their slippers before entering into the building. And it has so much more to do. It has very little to do with hygiene and more to do with the shoes being symbolic of stepping out of your past. And that past, it includes the conversation we had a few moments ago. It included everything that happened earlier this morning and in the middle of the night when you woke up, and last night and the days before, and the weeks, the months, the years, the stories. When you hear the bell, just, if you like to, visualize yourself arriving on this chair, on this cushion, and most importantly, into this moment. Very gently surrendering your muscles to the forces of gravity. So that your muscles and the joints which are holding your bones up, they begin to loosen. And you begin to just notice your body's ability to balance itself. Feel your pelvic region. Feel the lower part of your body. Feel the stability that you experience as your body rests on these surfaces underneath. And then find that point where the spinal column meets your pelvic bone. And I'm referring to the tail end of the spinal column. It's quite magical the way in which it balances, how the lower end of the spinal column is surrounded by the muscles in the lower back. How we've strengthened these muscles over years so that now hardly any effort is required. But you can, if you experience any tension in your lower back, just release it. And the way to do it is by breathing in and feeling the breath, visualizing the breath entering into the muscles of your lower back. And then just allowing the breath to float around this area, cradling it. And then exhaling, and as you exhale, releasing not only the breath, but any unnecessary tightness and tension that you may be holding here. And in the same way, just follow your spinal column upward. And it's a little bit more fun doing it vertebra by vertebra. As though you had all the time in the world. Exploring the arch. the way in which each vertebra supports the next. Even visualizing it like the lights on a Christmas tree, lighting up from vertebra to vertebra as you become aware, all the way to the top end, which connects to the skull through the neck. And just spending a few moments just noticing your posture. And if you like, stretching the top end upward, giving you maybe 1 millimeter or 2 of height. Acknowledging the fluids, the nerves, the energies within the spinal column, which, like one of those hose pipes, begin to clear, allowing these fluids, these energies to flow more comfortably, more easily. Noticing that part which connects with the skull, that part of the spinal column, and how just underneath it you find the neck muscles. What do your neck muscles feel like? How much tension do you actually need within the neck to keep your head upright? That is, if you're seated. Releasing, breathing into the neck, cradling your breath for a few moments, and then releasing any unnecessary tension and tightness, so that you're relying more on balance and structure to keep your head upright. And the shoulder muscles. Releasing the shoulder muscles to gravity. The gravity that you can feel through your arms. Pulling your arms down. Noticing the points of contact that seem to support your hands and your arms. Keeping them in the place that you find them at this moment. We've very gradually started to recognize through our posture the very fact that we are seated. Some of us lying down, but many of us seated. Experiencing what it feels like to be in this posture. Being in this posture. I recently heard a teacher remind us that we are all known as human beings. Human beings. 2 words. Let's begin the practice by simply contemplating on this. 2 parts to us. Possibly 2 parts to us. That which is human What does this include? The body, which we have started to explore. That human part to us, the stories, what we've accumulated in the form of our everything, education, financial accumulations, possessions, the food we consume, the food we look for, status, awards, recognition, relationships, comfort. That's the human side. And then that second part, being. Notice two words with a gap in between. Human, space, being. This is the part we will seek out in today's practice so that we may observe that human part. Because it's normally the human part that has its challenges, its wants, some of which haven't yet been fulfilled and therefore causes pain. Memories, many different stories, which it keeps replaying over and over again. Like one of those record players, repeating the same tracks over and over again. Let's remind ourselves that that's why we're here, practicing together, entering into this practice together. So that we may explore tools that we already know about. We already know about because they exist in our memories in the form of previous practices, in the form of the books that we've read, the teachers that we've met. But once again, I'll ring the bell so that we may enter into this practice light and new, enter into this state of being. And it simply means it's not that complicated. It just means entering into this present moment. And so when I ring the bell, just begin exploring, awakening your different senses. Maybe the sense of sight may not be that relevant, although it can be, because how often are you awake? Like now, how often are you awake but yet have your eyelids shut? And so maybe the sense of sight can be particularly useful today, because it seems to indicate that something different is going on. I can see the insides of my eyelids. I'm awake, I'm not asleep. The sense of hearing. Divert your attention from the eyes to the ears. There may be many different sounds around you. In fact, that's very likely. But notice your ability to isolate just the sound of this bell. You can get the mind's help if you like. You can visualize. You can actually visualize sound because it looks a little bit like a ripple on a still pond. A ripple, sound waves, they travel quite in the same way as those ripples. As the sound of the bell fades away, what sounds are you left with? And we're interested in the sounds that you can hear right now. And notice how as you listen to these sounds, notice judgments which sometimes arise from the mind. It's like, I like this sound, I don't like this sound, and the secret to this practice is to stay with that being part, understanding that these judgments, they go with the human part. I like this sound, this one sounds too loud, this one too soft. That's the sound of the fridge, that's the sound of birds, that's the sound of the leaves rustling outside because I left the window open. Notice the chatter. And then notice the space between the being, the witness, the observer, and these voices, these judgments. And if you like, notice even the gaps in between particular sounds. Maybe one of the most prominent sounds you will hear would be my voice. You might have almost forgotten, but yes, my voice coming through these speakers and noticing there is something more important than the sounds emanating from my vocal cords, and that would be the silence, the gaps in between the sounds, without which none of the words would be formed. And then diverting your attention from the sounds to the gaps, and diving into these the silence which seems to envelop every sound. It seems to be underneath, above, to the right and to the left, to the front and the back of every sound wave. Even of that annoying sound that you can hear, whether it's somebody's voice or traffic outside your window, a car alarm, a siren. Simply acknowledging that that particular sound would not be audible if not for the silence in the background. And we all know that because we've been to loud parties, we've been to concerts, we've been to clubs where the music is where the music can be quite deafening and you can barely hear anything. Or in the airport as you approached a plane with its jet engines running, you can barely hear anything. And that is the value of the silence. Since we are on sound, let's explore it a little bit further, just to remind ourselves how we can use sound in our practice. Because obviously this practice will be over in less than an hour. But we want to find tools that we can use, take with us, practice. And if you enjoy sound as a tool, if you enjoy your sense of hearing as a tool in your practice, it's about seeking out those sounds, finding those sounds. They've always been here, but finding those sounds that are quite neutral to you, which you neither dislike nor like, which are simply there. Right now in your experience, are there any sounds like that? Because even my voice, some of you might like it, some of you might not, and so it causes turbulence in the mind. Likes and dislikes, judgments, they awaken the movements and the momentum of the mind. But the neutral sounds, for me, I can tell you, I'm in a room where the fridge is very close to me and I can hear it humming. And it's just a very gentle and soothing hum. It's not good. In the sense that I'm not smitten by it. It just is. It just exists in the background. I don't like or dislike it, and sometimes just tuning into that, isolating that particular sound, you will notice your mind and its momentum slowing down. The fan on my computer is quite similar. Quite neutral, neither like nor dislike. And have you discovered a sound like that that's around you? Sometimes it can be the chirping of birds, the sound of nature. Doorways into the present moment. Why do we want to enter into the present moment? This is a good time to notice where the mind is. And your mind might already be fairly quiet, but noticing the qualities of the mind, and this is something you can take with you after this practice, just noticing its qualities, how it's always in the past or projecting itself into the future, which is the opposite of the present moment. This present moment, as I mentioned to some of you, I was listening to Eckhart Tolle a short while ago, and Eckhart Tolle describes the present moment as a vertical line. If you can, in your mind's eye, imagine a vertical line. And that is this present moment. Constantly the present moment. The last breath took place in what was a present moment. 5 minutes ago was experienced as the present moment. 5 minutes ago, and every future moment arrives as the present moment, a vertical line. And the mind, a horizontal line. That human part. Stories, the past, the projections into the future. We call sometimes if the future is seen as undesirable, worry, anxiety, frustration, and all of those arise. Of course, if the future is seen as good and better than now, then there's hope. Same with the past. There have been good experiences. There have been experiences that have made us smile, have brought smiles to our lips, laughter. And there are those experiences which haven't. And in this present moment, on this vertical line, we have, as we enter into this being state, as we step outside of the human and enter into the being state, as we notice that space between human and being, we develop the ability to choose which parts of the past we would like to give attention to. And of course, if we give attention, if we shine the spotlight on those parts which brought smiles and laughter, the present moment is experienced in shall we call it a nice way? But when we exist in the horizontal line, stepping away from this present moment, getting caught up in the past and the future, no longer having that distinction, that gap, that space. We call that identification with the mind. And that's probably the reason we're here in this practice. Because we're beginning to notice that it's not really serving us. It sometimes feels like a roller coaster ride. Sometimes ups, sometimes exhilarating, sometimes terrifying and scary. And that's what the identification with the mind, it's a pattern many teachers talk about. Ups, downs, lefts and rights. Until we decide there must be another way. And we've taken the first step. We've entered into a practice such as this, where when the roller coaster stops, which is what we've just done, the roller coaster has come to a stop. And not in one of those dangerous places, just right at the base where the entrance is, where the ladders is, where it's safe to disembark. We've stopped. Our bodies have stopped moving. Our eyes are closed. We've stopped. Now we climb out so that we may be a spectator, entering into the state of being. And then the roller coaster begins, as it always will, because the world is constantly unfolding around us. There's work, there's relationships, there's everything else, music, excitement, many good things. And each one of these experiences They cause the mind to move in a particular way. And so long as we identify ourselves as the mind, that's how we experience it. Ups and downs and lefts and right. But now, where are we? Wait a second. For a minute, we actually thought we were a part of the ride, but no, we're actually spectators now. We just got off. We got off. We stepped out. And here we are. Here we are. Awaken your sense of touch, your skin. Using every inch of your skin, the skin that envelops your body, that coats your body. Awakening it so that you experience the little things. The little things. Clothing. Normally, most of us, we choose our own clothing. We buy our own clothing. And so hopefully it feels nice on the skin. What does the fabric feel like on your skin? With your eyes closed. It doesn't quite have a sound. Because your eyes are closed, the sense of sight, it fades into the background. Maybe there's a smell, maybe detergent, perfume. But it's mainly the sense of touch. Feel the way in which it interacts with your skin. Some of us might have tighter, stretchy materials. Feel how that rests on the body. And some of us looser. Many of us will have different layers. Of course, you'll feel mainly the fabric in the innermost layer. You might feel the outer layers more as weight. But it's your experience. What can you experience? And you are entering into the present moment. Into this vertical line. Stepping away from the past and the future. Noticing how vast this present moment actually is. The line, you seem unable to notice where it ends as it stretches upward, as it stretches downward. It just seems constantly the present moment. And we immerse ourselves in it, not understanding it, because how do you understand it? With the mind which is in a completely different direction. The mind is horizontal. The mind is the horizontal line. So let's not try to use the mind to decipher and understand. This is to be experienced. Just like the taste of chocolate or one of your favorite foods. Not explained, not analyzed. Simply experienced. And right now, through the surfaces of your body, through your skin. Where are your hands? What do the fingers feel like on your hands? Feel the life within your hands. What is life? Again, release the need to analyze, to think, and just experience whether, how do you know your hands are alive? Through the sensations, through the weight of the hands, through the way in which they rest on a particular surface, how the fingers interact with each other, the moistness, the dampness, the warmth, the coolness. And that's just the outer body. There are the exposed areas of skin coming into direct contact with the air around you. The air might feel still. You might feel movement if you're windows or you have a fan in the room. Or maybe you're just sensitive enough to pick up on the very subtle movements, where for some of us it feels still, but for you, you can feel its movement. How it rests in between the tiny hair follicles that seem to cover your body, your face, your scalp. And then reminding yourself there is one part of the body which for sure experiences the movement in air, and that is your nostrils, your nose, how the body experiences breath. And so very gradually let the spotlight fade. The spotlight that up until now has been covering the surfaces of your body, almost as though you were visualizing a stage act where the whole cast was, that the light was shining on the whole cast, and then suddenly it begins to fade and focus on just one area, maybe even one or two actors on the stage. And this actor that we're interested in right now is that actor called the breathing process. And now we're starting to explore these sensations within the body, because these are surfaces, skin within the nostrils, within the nasal passage. And again, the little things, nothing too profound. We're not looking for analysis and theories about the breath, just the breath in. What's its temperature? It's that easy. The breath out. What is its temperature, and how do I know that this is the temperature? Which surfaces can I actually experience these temperatures, these movements in the air? Being curious about our relationship with this air that surrounds us. Other sensations, humidity, the humidity of the breath in, the humidity of the breath out. Invoking your beginner's mind, because it's so easy to be on that horizontal line where you have memories of your breath. And when we exist in the horizontal line of the past and the future, we stop experiencing and begin thinking. But we enter into the being, this moment. And if the past fades away, if every breath you've ever had up until this moment dissolves and fades away, all you're left with is whatever you're experiencing right now with the breath that's either flowing in or out. And then you watch the mind, the horizontal line where it says, it's okay, I'll wait for the next breath. I'd rather think about something else that's interesting, this conversation, my timetable, because that's going to be the next breath. Yeah, and that's how you step into the horizontal line. And you miss the present moment. And we're just using the breath as an example. But this happens to us in many areas of our life, in our relationships, and the things that we own, our homes, everything we've ever purchased. We remember what it was like to use it before. We remember or we imagine what we're going to do with it later on or tomorrow or next year. And we stop experiencing it. And so we're practicing with our breath. And so we bring ourselves back, invoking the beginner's mind and breathing in for the first time so that the breath in becomes a new beginning, a new start. And if you like, a new birth. What does a new birth feel like? Because that is the essence of this practice. Being reborn into every moment. And if you've ever seen a very young child splashing in a really filthy puddle, or just being curious about the most ridiculous thing like a twig or a pebble or a stone, you begin to remember what being is like. Seeing for the first time, experiencing for the first time. And we're just talking about our breath. Bringing yourself back to your breath. Allowing each intake of breath to be this new beginning. Every exhalation, a letting go, a releasing. And you'll notice how consciously breathing in this way, each breath grounds us more deeply, anchors us into this present moment, which is awareness itself. And there you have it. Your sense of touch as a doorway into the present moment. What other parts within the body can we still experience this present moment through? The muscles, the rising and the falling of the lungs, the chest wall. Of course, the stomach. How its wall rises and falls, how the insides balloon and contract as we breathe. And so this sense of touch, it has many different dimensions to it. And it's up to us which one we would like to focus on at any given time. And those other two, the sense of smell. We spoke very briefly about the sense of smell being a doorway into the present moment. through the smell of the detergent or the perfume that you might find, or if you've just cooked a meal, the remnants of what's left of the scent of the food, or incense or something like that. Another doorway into the present moment, which may be less relevant to some of us right now. The sense of taste as well, but useful. We remind ourselves that as later on in the day, as we sit down to our meals and our drinks, even if it's water, the taste of water, the taste and the smell of water, the taste and the smell of the different foods that we consume. Not only the food of toothpaste tonight, the herbs within different types of teas, or whatever it is that you enjoy, whether it's coffee or other drinks. Doorways into the present moment. Every sensation, every experience, an opportunity to enter into this state of presence and being. And let's remind ourselves why. Why? Could it be? Could it be because outside of these thoughts, as we step outside of these thoughts, we step into a space that is so much larger than the thought forms themselves. If you can visualize thoughts as clouds, which we've done many times before, but it's nice to remember. Thoughts, if you've ever seen those white fluffy clouds with particular shapes, they have forms. Sometimes they take on shapes, and as children we used to play, we used to imagine one to be a fruit and one to be like an elephant or some other animal. And what most of us have done when we experience our problems and frustrations and even happiness is that we give a lot of attention to the form, the thoughts, simply because they reflect light. They're easier to notice because we've trained ourselves to notice through habits. We only notice the form, but a moment ago we noticed silence in between sounds. And we began to discover how profound that silence truly was. And in the same way, can we notice the gaps in between the clouds, which at this juncture, at this stage of the practice, you may notice more the gaps that have started to appear. And it's not about stopping the clouds from moving. We know that's not possible in our real world. And in the same way, in this practice, we simply acknowledge that we're not here to stop the clouds from moving. We're not here to force our minds to go still, because there's a lot of momentum, many different experiences, many different experiences, some good, some bad, likes, dislikes. We've seen it, and instead we shift our focus to these gaps. And we begin to discover, just begin If today is our first day in the practice, we begin to discover a new relationship that we are now capable of forming with our mind, one that is based on the identification with this space, where you can notice the forms and you can even put your arms through these clouds, because they don't actually exist. They're just little water droplets that are arranged in such a way that they reflect light. But there's nothing there. Just like the mind, you can move your hand through the clouds. And the why? Because in this space we find, as we step outside of our thoughts, we find wisdom. The solutions, seeing the bigger solutions. The holistic solutions to some of those challenges that we experience. And we all know that when we try to solve problems from within the mind, it always comes from a place of fear or anxiety or worry. And every solution results in 3 more problems. And then we try to solve it from within the mind, and it causes more problems. And we can see that in many areas, in politics, in the wars that we have against drugs, against what we call, what the newspapers call terrorism. They try to, we all, and we as well, we try to solve problems from within the mind. But now, as we shift into this space of awareness, there is wisdom, there is kindness. The Dalai Lama calls this a space of kindness, where the solutions, the remedies, the answers we have been seeking become so much more clearer, because they've always been here. And that's one of the whys that we would enter into a practice such as this. And it's nice to remember why. I'll ring the final bell. The final only because it denotes the end of our hour together, but in actual fact, a bell symbolizing the beginning of the real practice. As you carry this kindness and this wisdom and this spaciousness with you into that world of where the horizontal line is, where we bring this presence, this vertical now with us. Into the world, the worlds, many different worlds. Each of us have a unique and special and different world.